What is the biggest bullet you've dodged in life? Driving to my girlfriend's parents' place in Montana for Thanksgiving, crossing a mountain pass in my 1984 Toyota Tercel. It was a beautiful, sunny winter day, but coming around a bend, I hit an ice patch and immediately started sliding off the road. It was next to a cliff with no guardrail, and it was a slow-motion freakout. The car came to a stop just before going over. My girlfriend didn't even have room to get out on her side. We slowly and carefully slid out of my side and both got out safely, but then our previous freakout turned quickly into some real concern about what the heck we were going to do next and how we were going to get out of there in the middle of nowhere, and it was cold. Not 2 minutes later, a pickup truck with 2 guys in the cab and 3 in the bed came around the bend toward us. They pulled over in front of my car and they all hopped out like a pit crew. One guy with a tow strap hooked it under the front axle, hooked it on the back of the truck, and they pulled my car off the cliff and back onto the shoulder of the highway. I thanked them profusely and asked them what in the heck they were doing out in the middle of nowhere like this. One guy said that there wasn't much to do around here, and helping people on the highway was kind of a fun activity. The entire event took a total of about 10 minutes. Alright, lesson learned here is that anyone in Montana will help you if you're pulled over. They're very friendly. Story 9. Around 2019, we were struggling financially, and as a result, our gas was shut off. After months of struggling, we were finally able to get the bill down and have the gas turned back on. When the worker came out, he had to do a mandatory test for carbon monoxide. Turns out our furnace was absolutely leaking carbon monoxide, and we had no idea. I can't help but think it's entirely possible that we could have passed away from carbon monoxide poisoning if we had not had our gas shut off in the first place. We got a new furnace and loaded up on carbon monoxide detectors. What was a huge misfortune of having our gas shut off due to not being able to afford the bill actually ended up saving our lives in the end. Story 3. I was dating this girl for a while. I thought she was the one for me, pretty, adventurous, and fun. Then I discovered at the time my best friend and her were sleeping together for a few months. I was devastated. I went into a full spiral depression for about 4 months. When I came out of it, I reached out to some friends who I had not talked to since. They chose the backstabber over me. My entire friend group abandoned me. I had no one. Then I hit up an old friend from a younger age who we drifted apart because of that friend group. We started hanging out again, and he introduced me to some new people. Then a few years after that, he introduced me to my now wife. Though at the time I was crushed by what they did, that best friend did me a huge favor and showed me that girl's true side, and now I'm happier than I have ever been. Story 4. My uncle had a random delay that resulted in missing a Twister story. My uncle was a trucker, and he was at a truck stop gassing up and getting some food before continuing on in his route. Anyways, as he's walking to the truck, this red heeler dog comes out of nowhere and he starts talking to it. Then after a bit, he's petting it. The dog is a young one and is just happy to have attention. My uncle, knowing there isn't anything in the area, keeps an eye out to see if someone is going to claim the dog. So he keeps playing for a while and decides, screw it, you're a trucker dog now. He opens the passenger side of his Peterbilt, and the dog hops up like he was supposed to be there. As my uncle rounds the truck, the puppy lies down in the sleeper cabin, falls asleep on the bed. So my uncle starts heading down his route again, and about an hour away, the town he was about to drive through has been completely ripped apart. Some high-category tornado just completely annihilated the town. So he says the dog saved his life and immediately adopts him and calls him Twister. Twister lived for 19 years longer after that meeting. Frickin' love that dog. Absolute heart of gold. Story 5. I met a very handsome young man at a community college I was attending. We had a couple of classes together and ended up exchanging numbers. We chatted a few times on the phone, and I remember him asking to take me out. I was flattered, and although he was very charming and seemed nice enough, I remember just giving him the, "Oh, sorry, I'm busy" lines. He stopped pursuing me and all communication ceased. About 6 months later, boom, he was all over the news for causing the fatal outcome of a young woman. And that arrest led the authorities to tie him to another unsolved fatal outcome that was done in the exact same fashion. Authorities even said he apparently had a certain type that he preyed on, and they stated the 2 women he essays and caused the fatal outcome of were the exact same body type. I remember being stunned and telling my parents I still have his number on my phone. I could have easily been another one of his people harmed, and I thank God for shielding me from him. Story 6. I've given the story before. 'Twas a bed years ago when I was in middle school. My brother and I had bunk beds, and he had the top one, which was held up with metal bars. If you've seen Step Brothers, you can see where I'm going with this, except it's with the metal bars instead of neat boxes. Well, since we lived in an old house in a country neighborhood, we occasionally got bed bugs. My bed got them especially badly, and it was even worse during the summer. Usually I went to bed first, but since I was getting tired of being bitten, I chose to stay up as long as I could while my brother went to bed. He jumped on his bed, which then fell onto mine. It did not fall flat. Rather, the side that fell was where my head would be. I slept in a chair that night. Story 7. I worked with 2 nurses and had my eye on Linda, a pretty, vivacious, smart, flirtatious woman. Her friend Deanna was very pretty but quiet, though she could hold conversations. I had concert tickets and went up to ask Linda out for the first time. She was wearing a wedding ring. Nurses don't wear rings, and Linda had forgotten to take hers off that evening. Deanna was in an isolation room all gowned up and masked. I put on a mask, went to the door, and asked her out. We've been married 47 years this month. The bullet I dodged was that Linda was a flake. She was on her second marriage, broke up with him, and married twice more. She always wanted younger, then much younger men, pretty boys. She aged out and would accept a man near her age. Last we knew, she was living alone. Story 8. I hurt my lower back last year and had to get surgery. During rehab, I was still having balance and bowel problems that, based on MRIs, shouldn't exist. Due to the bowel stuff, I went and got a colonoscopy at 38 years old, and they found a huge polyp that was about 6 months away from turning into colon cancer. The doctor mentioned how lucky I was, gotten it taken care of, and found out recently my issues are due to different higher up back injury, where my nerve was compressed affecting my bowel, and I'm getting it fixed now. If I hadn't hurt my back and it wasn't misdiagnosed, I'd have colon cancer right now. A misdiagnosed back injury potentially saved my life. Story 9. My dad and I used to ride the same train line every night back home from the city for work. We sat in the same car, same row, same seat. One night, both of us couldn't make it, so we were going to get home. However, different times, take a taxi, etc. That night, a gunman was on our train, same time, in the same car, a third, walking up and down the aisle, shooting people. A father and son were sitting in our normal seats. The father was harmed and the son paralyzed. I couldn't ride the train for a whole month. I couldn't get the thought out of my mind that it should have been us. I still think about it every time I'm on a train. Story 10. Went to my girlfriend's dorm after a date. We were snogging on the front porch of the dorm, and I jokingly asked if I could drive her back over to my dorm across campus because it was so late. It was about 3 in the morning at the time. I knew she'd say no, which was fine because it was mostly a joke. I picked up a can of metal cleaner the staff had left next to the door and said I'd use it for self-defense if anyone tried anything. Gave her a quick kiss, put the cleaner back down, and got about 100 feet away when I heard my name. Confused, I stopped, turned around, and she was running towards me with her keys. I told her I was joking and that I'd be fine. Turns out someone had just been caused the fatal outcome of about 20 feet from my dorm window, throat slit. The police were still on the scene when I pulled into the parking lot. They ended up finding the guy hiding in the bushes next to our humanities building, a building and bushes. I would have walked by that about 2 to 3 minutes later if my girlfriend hadn't come running back out to give me her keys. Story 11. I was driving on the highway at about 70 miles per hour to meet my now wife's mom for the first time. Suddenly, a 10 to 20 pound arrowhead-shaped piece of broken asphalt was launched at my car in a huge arch from the wheels of a speeding semi ahead of me. I had enough time to calmly realize, that's going right at me. I'm definitely going to pass away. I didn't know if I should hit the brake, speed up, no idea. I think I just took my foot off the accelerator. It landed on the hood of my car right in front of the windshield, leaving a huge gouge on the middle hood. The hood absorbed a lot of the impact, but momentum kept the truck moving and it bounced onto the windshield and cracked it, and then rolled onto the roof, gouging that, then the back window and the trunk lid, scraping everything it touched. If I had been going the most minuscule amount faster or was literally 1 foot closer to that truck, I have no doubt that thing would have gone through the windshield and harmed me. I think everyone has some kind of similar story. Some of them we know about, like this event, but others we have no idea about because nothing happened. Story 12. Thanks to an ear infection, I wasn't caused the fatal outcome of. When I was a child, my mother worked until 2 a.m. and her best friend's 20-something-year-old daughter was my babysitter. She had a toddler and a daughter who was my age, so we were naturally best friends. We lived exactly 1 block from each other. I generally stayed in their apartment overnight, and early in the a.m., my mom would pick me up and get me ready for school. One afternoon, I came down with a fever at school. My mom had to come pick me up early and take me to the pediatrician. I had a double ear infection. The fever wouldn't come down, so she didn't go to work. The next morning, my mom and I woke up to sirens all over the neighborhood. Then there were helicopters. We went outside and saw that down the street at the building where my best friend/babysitter lived was surrounded by police and EMS. My mom asked NYPD what happened and told them that her friend's daughter lived there. The officer asked what apartment, and when my mom told her, he lost all the color in his face. He then asked my mom if she had any contact info for the residents in the home. My mom then started screaming for the officer to tell her what's going on. He then told us that a woman and 2 kids were caused the fatal outcome of by someone. Another person was stabbed but survived. My babysitter and her kids were terminated by my babysitter's ex-boyfriend, and I was supposed to be there that night. Story 13. I was driving a terrible 2000 Toyota Camry to play poker at a Cherokee casino in North Carolina. I just got my check from Black Friday when online poker shut down in the United States. So for a couple of years, I was working restaurant jobs and going to school because my dream was over. But then that $12,000 check came in and I restarted my dreams. This was a couple of months into me getting back into poker. I was driving down the mountain, a very bendy section of the interstate, right turn downhill, and it was pretty steep for the interstate. A downpour came out of nowhere, just absolutely drenching the road. I start spinning out because I have some terrible bald tires on my car since I've been broke for so long. There's a car in front of me, a car beside me, and a car directly behind me. I do one full 360, then I hit the median and do another 360. I'm still spinning and end up backwards on a patch of grass to the side of the road. This is the only patch of grass, tree line 50 yards behind me, tree line 50 yards in front of me. And I just sit there in shock. A bunch of cars pull over to make sure I'm okay. And a state trooper pulls over. Everything is fine. My car has one scratch on the bumper, so then I just drive off thinking, what the screw just happened? I lost $1,500 at the poker tables. I could have guessed that would happen. Then on my way home, my hood pops up while I'm driving and I can't see things while going 60 miles per hour on the interstate. It's all bent and screwed up. I use straps to keep it down. Then the next week, I have the craziest run in my poker career. I made $50,000 in 3 days in the sketchiest home games. They actually kick me and my buddy out of these games because they're sick of us pros coming. Anyway, I go and buy a new car that week, and my poker career was pretty good after that. Never a $50,000 week, but I made tenfold that over the years. Now I'm a metal worker / artist and doing what I love, and it started out being funded by my love for a stupid card game. Story 14. Dated an attorney who claimed she was still untouched. After a few dates, she wanted to meet some of my old friends. No big deal for me, so I introduced them at a social gathering. Apparently, she was accusing me of fooling around with one of my friends that she just met at the party just because we were talking and catching up. I didn't hear this as I was on the other side of the house, but as her and I were about to leave, my friend said in Spanish she had to tell me something. Spanish because my date didn't know Spanish. I told her to text me because my date and I were going back to my place, so obviously I'm thinking with my bottom half here. We get back to my place, things start heating up as things do, then she drops the V card bomb on me. We talked about it to discuss comfort levels, and then I finally get a text message from my friend at that same time telling me everything my date was saying at her house. Obviously rubbed me the wrong way and lost all interest in her, but had to figure out a way to get her out of my place without triggering a reaction. My immediate thought was, she's an attorney and would know how to game the system if she wants to claim any type of assault. I told her I felt like I was having some stomach issues and needed to get medicine at a 24-hour pharmacy next door, and she could come with me. My apartment has cameras on every floor and I knew where they were placed. Conveniently, they also recorded audio because I had to obtain footage months ago for a break-in for stolen packages. Every camera we walked past, I made sure to say loud and clear that I wasn't feeling good, and it was smart for us to not go further right now, intimacy-wise. I made sure she stated outright that if we did decide to, that she consented. I even threw in, I've had a few drinks, I'm just concerned that you might take advantage of that because you really like me, and I want this to be clear, mind consent decision from the two of us. We go to the pharmacy, I buy some Tums and start recording on my phone in my pocket. I bring up the whole fooling up accusation and she loses her mind, like I legit thought she was going to try to hurt me or something. Then she outright says that she's willing to forget the fooling around thing if I sleep with her. I don't know if she was bipolar or what, but red flags are screaming at me at this point. I tell her she should go. I call her an Uber, make sure she gets inside and then go back home. I send a text in the morning that based on the previous night's events, I have no interest in seeing her further, then I block her everywhere. I requested the footage from my landlord and save it on my computer as backup. A month later, I get a letter that she's filing a essay suit against me. I contacted a lawyer through my legal insurance, and it turns out he knows her and had a defendant for the exact same charge as a year ago. I provide him with all the evidence I have, including the recording on my phone. Turns out it's not admissible anyways because of a two-party consent law or something. We go to court, I countersue, I ended up winning, and I'm so happy my friend texted me when she did. Who knows what could have happened? Story 15. My best friend in college was a guy, we'll call him Jack, and Jack had a good friend, Ben, who he moved in with sophomore year. Fall semester, Jack offers to set me up with Ben because he thinks we'd hit it off, so I agree. First date, Ben picks me up in a very nice car and takes me to one of the more expensive restaurants in town where he tells me to order whatever I want and not to worry about the price. And we do get along pretty well, enough to plan a second date. Quick context, I grew up in South Texas and went to college in Texas. It's relevant, I swear. Second date, Ben asks if I like to go to the shooting range. I say, heck yeah, let's go. I grew up around big guns and hunting and was 100% comfortable with the idea. He picks me up after class with my Whataburger order waiting for me on my seat. 19-year-old me swooned. We get to the shooting range and he busts out this gorgeous rifle, pretty much brand new for us to shoot. I never shot one before, but I'd shot other rifles, so I sort of knew what I was doing. I asked him to show me how to load it once, and then I shot better than he did for the rest of our time there. He ghosted me after that. I asked Jack about it a while later, and he said Ben thought I was too much like one of the guys. I shrugged and thought, well, if that's all it took to scare you off, good riddance. The next semester, Ben was arrested. He went to a frat party with a female friend. She got too intoxicated, and her friends put her to bed in a back bedroom to sleep it off. He snuck in once she was alone and then felt bad about it the next day and told her. I've never met her, don't know her name, but I am so proud of her for pressing charges. Ben turned himself in and later admitted to essaying the young woman. He's married now, somehow. Story 16. I was at a crosswalk with my nephew in Houston, somewhere around Minute Maid. I was in a hurry and we didn't have a walk sign, but I was like, screw it, and motioned him while saying, go, go, go. A big rear blue truck turned right and was now on the street. I was making my tiny nephew cross, and with a freaking green light, it was like a quick turn then go situation for the truck. I screamed a sound I've never heard myself or any other human make before. It was like as deep as my voice can go while being also as high-pitched as my voice can go. No! The truck somehow saw him and stopped. I would have freaking harmed myself if the truck hadn't stopped. I get a low-key PTSD from it at crosswalks now. Will never be so impatient again. And if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 17. I was in Poland. I was 16 and my great-grandmother was there visiting family. I was with her. She came from a very secular Jewish Orthodox community that barely a third survived the war. A man had taken a liking to me. My great-grandmother forbade the match, saying I was of mixed ancestry. That community was very particular about skin color and race too. Thank God we went back home to Australia a week later. The next time I visited Poland was at 23. I didn't look up my great-grandmother's family, but still had a great time. Story 18. Went to a friend's house who said his girlfriend was bringing a friend for me and to see if we hit it off. She was a major flirt, and I thought things were going well. At the end of the night, I made my move, and she shot me down. Fast forward 10 years at that same friend's wedding. The girl was there, obese, intoxicated, and very attention-hungry. She comes up to me while I'm standing there with my date, future wife, and she begins with, hey, do you remember me? Remember when you tried to sleep with me and I laughed? I hit her with, do you remember when you were all intoxicated and brought up some awkward stuff at a wedding and made everyone uncomfortable? She looked so confused and went, no. I said, oh, because it's happening right now? She then proceeded to make an intoxicated best woman speech and then went around to every guy at the wedding asking if they wanted to dance, even if they had dates or not. Story 19. Many, but this one sticks out. I hated math, but loved the job my dad did. He traveled the world going to buildings his company insured, so I was going to school for engineering to travel, like an idiot thinking that was all engineers did. I was taking math classes and struggling. My brain just didn't work that way. Cut to 1 year in a college at a party. The cops showed up. I was 18. Oh no, the cops era. I was intoxicated and woke up in the hospital. Apparently, I had jumped off the balcony to catch a tree and missed. Fell 3 stories, cracked my pelvis, and broke my arm. I had to cancel my math classes, but I had signed up for an online psychology course, so that semester I was taking Percocets and reading psychology like a book. I'd never been so enthralled. I switched my major immediately, realized I was creative, and started doing stand-up comedy. I know the life I was heading towards would have been a disastrous one, and it took that incident to change my course and realize I had a different calling. Story 20. I was with a woman in my early 20s that I'd had a crush on for most of high school. At the time, I was tending bar and a raging alcoholic, but she stayed nonetheless. We ended up getting pregnant, and I could just not get my things together. We lost it to a miscarriage, and she ghosted me a few weeks later. We had known each other for a decade, and it had been on and off for 5 of those years, so the ghosting was like being stabbed in the heart. In the span of a few weeks, I'd lost my first child and the only woman I had ever loved. She did reach out a few weeks later and apologize for ghosting me, and we parted somewhat amicably. It took me a few years to bounce back from that, but eventually I went to community college, moved across the country to transfer to a very prestigious college, found my niche in anthropology, and met my soulmate who I am celebrating 6 months of marriage with today. My ex met a good man she's super compatible with. She always wanted to be a mom, but had miscarried several times. She now has 2 kids with him and loves being a mom, and I'm happily married and about to get my bachelor's next month, so I guess we both dodged a bullet. Story 21. When I was young, too young, I met a woman in a foreign country while I was vacationing, and I was head over heels for her that we talked about getting married and me bringing her over to my country, etc. She's from a small village, so people noticed we were spending time together, and everyone said we would make a good couple, and they're excited to have a wedding there, etc. Everything moved fast. I was there for 2 weeks, and over that time, every day the girl would learn a new recipe and make something for me. Everyone knew about it and asked me if the cooking was good. I eventually came back home and snapped back to reality. Then it was super awkward. I had to break things off with her over long distance. Anyways, I know she is now married with children, but she still lives in the same village and probably will never leave her country. Story 22. Less of a bullet and more of a tactical nuke. I broke up with the dude I'd been dating for a couple of months because he hadn't listened to my no on some minor things and he was bragging about getting in trouble for losing his temper at work. I am 100% sure breaking up over the phone instead of in person saved my life. Before this, I always felt like breakups needed to be in person because I owe it to them, but I just had a really uneasy feeling about the situation and I couldn't articulate why. I talked to my family about it and they all agreed to do it over the phone, so I did. And it was wild. First, he offered for me to move in with him instead because maybe the 45-minute distance between us was the issue. This is a 2-month thing that was barely even a relationship. When I said no, it was him that was the issue. He wanted me to come over and at least chat about it. I declined, saying nothing would change my mind and ended the call. He then texted me pictures of tons of my things. Apparently, he had taken things out of my bag when I was over. He said I needed to come over for the stuff I left there, but I am certain I never took it out of my bag. It was insane. He must have stolen them to get leverage or something. I just told him to keep it or sell it. Then he said he was feeling depressed and I was his only friend and he just needed me to come over for a chat. I offered to call the cops to do a check-in. He kept contacting me with reasons for me to come over. When those didn't work, he started threatening me and my family, mentioning how many guns he had, nothing left to live for, etc. At this point, I literally opened up the book, The Gift of Fear, and followed its steps for situations like this, basically verbatim. The last message I sent to him about not being interested and don't contact me again was literally copied word for word out of that book. I also used the online assessment thing Gavin DeBecker has on his website. I am 100% certain without following DeBecker's advice so exactly, I would be passed away. If I had gone over there to break up or followed friends' advice about a restraining order, it would have for sure escalated and I'd be passed away. As it was, the dude still ended up stalking me and showing up places where I was, emailing people to ask if I'd be there for a few years. Thankfully, it's been a couple of years now since he last contacted me, so hopefully he's moved on. I still get super panicky when I see his model of car though, lol. Story 23. My entire family left a festival about 20 minutes before a mass shooter arrived. A child, among others, was caused the fatal outcome of on a bouncy house slide my 6-year-old had just been riding minutes before. I heard about it on the radio in the car home. I still haven't told my kids what happened that day. They still have fond memories of the festival. Brushing up against fate like that is a weird feeling. You feel lucky, but also feel shame for feeling lucky when others experience the worst horrors imaginable. Story 24. I started having what I assumed was a severe panic attack while at my girlfriend's house, shaking, sweating, mind racing, nauseous, couldn't think straight, felt like I was passing away, the whole 9 yards. We were just watching a movie and it came out of nowhere. I had panic attacks before, but this time for some reason I heard a voice in my head say, "Hospital, now." Luckily, my GF lived 1 minute away from a major hospital. They were checking my vitals and for some reason I said, "Check my sugar." And the nurse said, "We normally don't check sugar." And I said, "Frickin' check it." I've never been one to yell at them or be angry. She checks it and gasps and says, "My God, how are you conscious?" I said, "I don't know, but I feel like I'm passing away." My sugar was at 19. I was admitted it instantly, and I don't remember much for the next little bit, but when I regained full consciousness, I had a glucose IV in my arm. Story 25. When I was in high school, I started selling herbal goodies as a way to make some money and buy some things I wanted. I was from a single mother home and didn't want to burden her more. Well, it turns out I was really good at it. I could talk to anyone, float in any circles, and had great customer service, so business was booming. So a guy from another school called me and asked if I could hook him up. Sure, I said, "How much do you need?" Well, he proceeds to tell me an amount that's like 4 times the amount he typically gets. And remember, my customer service skills are A1, so I track this. It seemed weird, but I'm not one to turn down money, so I fought my instincts and decided to do the deal. He asked me to meet him at Family Dollar, so I go to the Family Dollar and I'm waiting on him to get there. So about 15 minutes go by and I'm starting to wonder where he is. I've never waited this long. At the same time, I'm fighting my gut. Something just seems odd or off. He calls me and is like, "Bro, where are you? I'm waiting." I say back, "What do you mean, bro? You said Family Dollar, I'm here." He says, "I don't see you. I'm here and don't see you." At this point, my spider senses are going crazy. I tell him, "Okay, gotcha. I'll call you right back." As soon as I hang up, my phone rings again and it's another friend who tells me, "Bro," the friend's name, "is trying to set you up. He's working with the police and is setting you up." I didn't get caught because I went to the wrong Family Dollar. I'm a productive member of society now, but I almost went down the road on a massive substance charge. Got lucky for sure. Story 26. In elementary school in the 80s, I walked to a babysitter/daycare at this lady's house for lunch and after school until I got picked up. Sometimes I ran into an older kid from another school who bullied me. One day after lunch, I paused before leaving because I saw the bully walking by. The lady noticed and asked what's up, so I explained and waited until he was around the corner, then left school. A short while later, this truck pulls up. I recognize the babysitter's older son driving. He was probably 30-ish and tells me to quickly get in the truck because a bully saw me and is coming. I looked back the way I came and saw nothing, so declined, what my parents said popping up in my head about strangers. When I said no thanks, I still recall this dark look flash in his face for an instant and then switch to this fake friendliness. He offered me a ride to school again. I said no. Then I booked it to the nearest house and cut through the yard. Afterwards, I told my parents and we stopped going there. Story 27. I was offered an opportunity to move away from my still current job to a director role of a department at a nonprofit. A 4-day work week, hybrid schedule, minimal nights, weekends, travel. The money would have been great. I would have reconnected with an old boss that would have been above me that I liked working for previously. I let my current boss know what was going on and that I intended to put in my resignation when offered. She asked me what it'd take to help me stay, which she is a great boss to work for, very pro-work/life balance. The 4-day work week and hybrid was a big thing about the other job, but I just had a feeling that I should give them an opportunity to keep me. They gave me a good offer and ability to earn a promotion, which I since have. I decided not to make the move to the other job. I stayed where I am with some better benefits. 2 months later, I get a message from the person I would have worked for letting me know that they've been completely shut down as the board dissolved their program and everyone was let go immediately. Story 28. Driving home for the holidays super late during college and started falling asleep, so I go to the nearest parking lot I could. It was for a hardware store and all the parking lot lights were out, but I saw some flashlights in the building, so I figured there was a power outage. I wondered if I should go up and ask if it was okay to sleep there, but figured it was better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission and took a nap. I end up woken up by a cop checking on me and telling me to drive on about 20 minutes later. Turns out while I was napping, one of the largest gun robberies in the state's history was going on in that building. I had officers show up at my house, guns drawn a couple of days later to interrogate me, but it was pretty obvious I didn't have any involvement. Thankfully, I did not interrupt the robbery to ask if I could take a nap in the parking lot. Story 29. I'm from the PNW, US, and I was heading up the coast of British Columbia with some friends from college to spend a weekend at a friend's family cabin on a tiny private island. In order to get to this island, we had to take a ferry from the mainland out to a marina, then take a smaller boat out to the island. We had missed the earlier ferry and ended up boarding the last one of the evening. By the time we got out to the marina, a freak storm had come in, complete with thunder and lightning. Turns out the boat we would be taking out to the island was an open-top aluminum skiff. This marina was quite remote, and given the hour and weather conditions, no one else was around. Like the 20-year-old idiots we were, we piled onto this metal boat with only a small headlamp for light and headed out into the open water for the minute ride. About 15 minutes in, lightning struck probably 100 yards from the boat and effectively blinded us for what had to have been a full minute or two. We stopped the motor and just sat there until we could see again before continuing on. I have no idea why we were not all electrocuted, but vowed at that moment never to be so stupid again. Story 30. Though we are in our mid-50s currently, the wife and I met only 11 years ago. We still have that passion you have when you are newly together. During the pandemic, we had been together 5 years at this point. We went for a drive. We both got amorous, which was normal. We were on a dirt road in the woods, so we pull over in a clearing and I go around to meet her in the back seat. And oh my goodness, someone had taken a massive dump not too long ago and it was right behind my car. I have a terrible gag reflex, so we get busy in the backseat, but I couldn't stop thinking about the poo, so I started gagging. Obviously, she didn't appreciate this. She had zero idea of what I had saw. We had to stop because of the gagging. I explained, we laughed. We were there for about 5-ish minutes when we left. About a quarter mile down the dirt road, a state police officer passed us. He would have seen my bare white rear out the back door. Holy terrible things. My wife works in the legal field, so she actually deals with cases like this. I would have been so mortified. We still laugh about this. Story 31. I was on a hike with a friend and his mom when I was probably like 12 years old. It was not a particularly difficult mountain or trail, but there was a short part with a ledge you had to shimmy across, and falling would have been like a 50-foot straight drop followed by continuing to tumble/slide down a freaking mountain. Again, not a big deal for most coordinated people, but I am not one of those people. I lost my balance and started falling, and the mom just casually grabbed my backpack and stabilized me. When we got to the other side, we all just stared at each other in silence for a few seconds until she started laughing. Now, I'm profoundly grateful she laughed. That was the right move for two very anxious 12-year-old boys. I still have a pit in my stomach when I think about it because I almost passed away, but her modeling for me to just laugh it off helped me avoid feeling traumatized. I remember when we got back, I told my mom, and she just waved it off like I was exaggerating. I still feel like my friend's mom did not get the appropriate credit or recognition for both saving my life and doing a great service for my mental health. Story 32. Driving on the Coquihalla, I was going up a large hill in the right lane of a double-lane highway, and just as I got to the crest of the hill, a car, going the wrong way, in the left lane, passed me. It happened so quickly that I didn't register that I nearly passed away in a head-on collision at 120 kilometers per hour until after they had passed me. How they got on the wrong side, I do not know. Maybe an emergency vehicle turned around. There was a big ditch and concrete barriers dividing oncoming traffic. There was also a convoy of semis just a few hundred meters behind me taking up both lanes, so I wonder how they dealt with that. It wouldn't have been much braking distance, that's for sure. Story 33. I was about 16 and I had just gone to pick up ice cream in the hot summer with my boyfriend. We got out of the car and I had the instinct to sit on the trunk of my car to eat that ice cream. It was parked in front of the mailbox on the neighborhood street. For whatever reason, I didn't. By the time I got to the front door, which I don't know, maybe was about 20 seconds, whipping around the corner in a neighborhood comes barreling an intoxicated driver, being pursued by several cops, and they were going crazy fast on these neighborhood streets. Anywhere, bam, that car crashed into the rear of my car where I almost just sat down and absolutely destroyed it. If I hadn't changed my mind and I had sat down there, I truly think I would have passed away and not reacted fast enough given how unexpected it was and how fast they were going. Story 34. Driving under an overpass during spring when the snow was just starting to melt. I was driving about 5 miles per hour under the speed limit because it was the perfect conditions for the road to melt and refreeze. I saw a bunch of slush splash off the bridge from a passing car and knew it was going to smack my windshield, so I got ready with the wipers, turning them on just as it hit. It wasn't slush, it was a piece of concrete about the size of 2 fists. The wiper caught it just as it started to penetrate my windshield right at my eye level, center to my face. It stopped about halfway through. I frickin' nearly soiled myself and pulled over, shaking so bad I had difficulty putting the car in park. Had I been going faster or not turned on the wiper at just the right moment, that chunk of concrete would have likely gone completely through and probably taken a better part of my brain to the back seat. Story 35. I was taking an off-ramp off an interstate while headed home from work. You merge onto a highway right at the start and the other lane is traffic from the other direction of the interstate. It is a no changing lane zone for a bit after you both get on the highway. I was driving an S10. I exited the interstate as a semi was exiting in the other lane. The dude immediately merged over. I was in his blind spot as well. I honked and he didn't hear. There was a guardrail next to me and no shoulder. I was near even with the back tires of the cab and quickly running out of space. I floored it and got past him. Another close call was driving in heavy fog in a full-size truck. I was driving about 10 under at 35 miles per hour. There was an intersection coming up and I had a strong feeling someone was going to turn in front of me. A van shot out in front of me from that side of the road. I slammed on the brakes and just missed him. I'd upgraded my brake system 2 months prior, and I probably would have hit him if I hadn't. And if any of these stories get to you too, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.